Welcome back to Guitar Made Simple. I'm Brian Metzger. This is the second lesson, so if you haven't seen the first lesson yet, go back and check that out and make sure you have that down. In the first lesson, we reviewed the strings, the fingers, and the frets. So for each one of the strings, you have the letter name and the number for the string. For each one of your fingers, you have a number and you have the name of the finger. And then for the frets, we learned a secret so that you never have to count frets. So that's going to be important. You want to make sure that you don't miss that content. This is going to build on top of that. So this time we're going to study our scales. And the first scale that we're going to learn is the major scale, and we're going to learn it in the key of C. And so we're going to start putting to practice already the content from the first lesson. So first finger, third fret, A string. That's your first note of your C scale. Second note is middle finger, fifth fret, A string. And then the third note is the pinky, seventh fret, A string. So go ahead and play those first three notes for me. Very good. Now, patterns are powerful because they help you predict what's going to happen next. But you do need to know, for them to be completely effective, you need to know when is the pattern going to break down, because at a certain point, every pattern breaks down. So here we go at this point. Our first three, that forms a pattern. The very next string, 3, 5, 7, same fingers, on the D string, I want you to play the same pattern. Now, in a scale, we play an octave scale. So there's 8 notes, but the first and the 8th note are the same. So technically, there's only 7 notes in the scale. Now, as we just played these first 6 notes, the use of that pattern, we've already got 6 out of the 7 notes down. So how easy is that? You're never going to forget it. Once you understand this pattern, you're never going to forget how to play this scale. Just keep those fingers, 3, 5, 7, index, middle, ring, 3, 5, 7, index, middle, ring. Now, this is the point where the pattern breaks down. And our next note is actually going to be the 4th fret of the G string. Now, you remember from the first lesson, how do you find the 4th fret? You go to the 3rd fret and you plus 1, so 3 plus 1. So that way it's easy to find. So index finger, 4th fret, G string, and then finally middle finger, 5th fret, G string. And that concludes the octave. So when you play the whole scale, it's... All right, so that's the scale. Practice it forward and backwards. Now, the other thing that we want to know is every one of those notes gets a number, a letter, a chord, and a scale. So let's just focus on the first part of that. Let's just focus on the number right now. So to do the numbers, you simply, the first note is the first number, and you just count it forward. 1, 2, 3, 4. So play and say the numbers with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Isn't that easy enough? And numbers are easy to do backwards. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So play the numbers forward and backwards. Once you have the numbers down, then now it's time to learn the letters. Because what does every note have? Numbers, letters, chord, and a scale. So now we're going to do the letters. The first note, we're in the key of C. That first note is C. Now the letters are actually easy to do as well because you know the alphabet. And so because we're in the key of C, it's going to start with C and it's going to end with C. So you know C is going to be your first and your last letter. Once you get to C, you simply ascend as if you're saying the alphabet. C, D, E, F, G. Now, once you make it to G, here's where something changes. There's no letter H, so you have to go back to the beginning and you start over with A. A, B, C. And if you did it correctly, you'll wind up on C at the end, which is, as we said, where it begins, it ends. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Excellent. So now an exercise that you can do to review the letters and the numbers is play the letters forward and say the number, play and say the letters forward and play and say the numbers backwards. I do that because it's easier to count backwards than it is to do your alphabet backwards. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, now here's the next level. With the letters and the numbers, remember, what does every note in the scale have? It has a number. You know those now. It has a letter. You also know those. It also has a chord and a scale. That's going to be for later lessons. We're just focusing on the letters and the numbers right now. But we can go deeper with the letters and the numbers. How do you do that? If I give you a number, I want you to give me a letter. If I give you a letter, I want you to give me a number. So 1 is C, 2 is D. Here's a way to do this. If I were to ask you for 5, you can simply start with C and say C, D, E, F, G. And you know that G is going to be 5. If I were to ask you to 4, start with C, C, D, E, F. You know F is the number 4. So I want you to be able to do that. And I'm going to teach you as we go forward. I'm going to show you ways that you can do that quicker. There's shortcuts to it. But I want you to understand that here's the way you calculate it. So what's the 7? C, D, E, F, G, A, B. B is the 7th. All right, so if I ask you for a letter, I want you to give me a number. If I ask you for a number, I want you to give me a letter. So if I say, what's the, anyway, 1 is C, 2 is D, 3 is E, 4 is F, 5 is G, 6 is B, 6 is A, 7 is B, and 8 is C. All right, so that's letters and numbers forward and backwards. And if I ask you for a number, you know how to be able to give me the letter. If I ask you for a letter, you know how to give me a number. Oh, let's say I ask you for a letter G, how do you get that? Well, you start, go back to C, and C, D, E, F, G. You know G is 5. If I ask you B, then you go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and you know it was 7. If I ask you for E, you go C, D, E, you know it's 3. So that exercise to count it works both for letters and numbers. Okay, so review that, practice that, find a friend, quiz a friend, have a friend quiz you, and we'll see you for the 3rd lesson shortly.